I welcome you all to Lugogo Baptist Church, where we exist to know Christ and to make him known. We do this through three simple ways of discipleship: evangelism and community outreach. My name is James Okurut, and by the grace of God, I lead a couples ministry. The couples ministry is composed of the marrieds, the courting couples, the parenting classes, and then premarital and marital counseling. Today is Couples Sunday. I'm excited to be bringing before you the message of the Lord, which is going to be taken from the book of Acts, chapter 18, from verse 1 to 4. And then we skip to verse 24 up to 26. At the end of the day, I want us to walk away, as I prepare my notes here, I want us to walk away with three key lessons. The first one, I want us to know that couples can have an effective ministry together. Number two, that your home is a valuable tool for discipleship and evangelism. Number three, every believer needs to be established in their faith, no matter their position in the church. Way back, growing as a young man, as a little boy, a kid, my daddy told me a story about what happened to Indians in Uganda. Our president then, Idi Amin, made a decree and said he had a dream that all Indians had to leave the country. There was chaos, there was crying, there was pain, it was a hard time, it was a pandemonium at that time. It was a terrible time. Similar circumstances many years ago in AD 49 happened in the city of Rome in Italy. A certain king called Claudius ascended to the throne. He became the emperor of the Roman Empire. And somehow it developed a dislike for the Jews. He never wanted to see anyone, any Jewish person in Rome. For him, Rome was supposed to be a place for Romans only, for Romans only, and not anything outside that. And so he issued a decree that all Jews had to leave Italy. They had to leave Rome. And so the Jews left. Among the people who left was a wonderful couple called Priscilla and Aquila. Priscilla and Aquila left Italy as refugees to the eastern country of Greece and settled in a city called Corinth. In Corinth, being an industrial couple, they quickly set up a business there, a tent-making business in that city, and they flourished. Many years, a few years later on, a gentleman called Paul, the Apostle Paul, joins them, comes to the city of Corinth. Paul had been on his second missionary journey to Thessalonica, Berea. He went to Athens, and now he was coming to Corinth. So when he landed in Corinth, he heard about Priscilla and Aquila, and he took keen interest in them. He decided to visit them, and when he visited them, Aquila and Priscilla welcomed him. They gave him shelter, they gave him a home. Not only did they give him a home, they gave him a business. Paul was equally a tent maker. And so they began to work together making tents as they preached the gospel of Christ in the city of Corinth. It was such a great union between the two of them. It was such a beautiful combination between the three, the couple and Paul. They established the Corinthian church. And after establishing that Corinthian church, they actually moved. Paul decided that no, it was time for him to move to another city in Asia, a city found in Syria called Ephesus. So Priscilla and Aquila decided to move together with Paul and settled in Ephesus. In Ephesus, they began to do similar things. They began to reach out to the Jews. They began to reach out to the Gentiles. They ministered unto them. Very many came to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ out of their work. Paul later on would leave them there and move to Jerusalem. Paul left them there with Timothy and Silas, that they would strengthen the church in Ephesus. As couples, God has called us into his work. God has designed it that when he brings the two of us, he brings us together to fulfill his purposes. Priscilla and Aquila clearly demonstrated this. They teamed up with Paul and delivered the work of Christ in Corinth and in Ephesus. Later on, after the death of Claudia, Priscilla and Aquila relocated back to Rome. They went and settled in Rome. And Paul writes to the Romans and mentions them in his letters and says, "Greet for me Aquila and Priscilla. They sacrificed themselves for me, and not only just me, but for the Gentile churches as well. And the Gentile churches are so grateful to them." This couple did amazing work. They partnered together. They ensure that they utilized the abilities of each other to further the gospel of Jesus Christ. Couples, today is our Sunday. I want us to know that Christ has put us together to effectively deliver his ministry. Number two, the Bible in Acts chapter 18, verse 3 says, Paul visited Priscilla and Aquila. And when Paul visited, Priscilla and Aquila took him to their home, and Paul began to live with them. In verses 25, we read about a gentleman called Apollos. When Apollos began to preach in Ephesus, Priscilla and Aquila attentively listened to him. And when they learned the message they had, the message Apollos had, they called him and took him to their home and lived with him, instructed him in the ways of the Lord at their home. These people opened their home to the work of the Lord Jesus Christ. When you read later on let me refer to my notes here. Later on, when we look at Romans chapter 16, verse 5, and 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 19, we see how Paul speaks about the church that meets at the home of Priscilla and Aquila. These people opened up their homes, the home to the children of God, to the saints in Ephesus, the saints in Rome, the saints in Corinthians. They would come and fellowship and worship at their home. Their home became a worship center. It became a training center. It became a place where people were ministered. As couples, God desires that we would open our homes to the children of God for purposes of training. Number three, I want us as couples to know that, as a believer, every believer must be grounded in the faith, no matter what they are doing in the church. Priscilla and Aquila were grounded in the faith. They understood the faith they believed in so much, to the extent that when a certain Jew who from Alexandria came, he was so powerful. Apollos was so powerful. He would speak and everyone would listen. You remember in 1 Corinthians when Paul talks about the churches that were breaking up, the church that was breaking up. One section was following Jesus, another was following Peter, another was following Paul, and then another was following Apollos. That is the Apollos. He was such a great orator. He knew the word of the Lord. He was trained in it. But unfortunately, he only understood the baptism of John. So after listening to him, Priscilla and Aquila took him to their home, sat him down, and began to teach him the ways of the Lord. That is what God desires of us. That we must be grounded. That where we find error, where we find a need to teach other believers, that we would take them and lovingly correct them, show them the ways of the Lord. As couples, that is God's desire for us. That we must grow in Him, we must be grounded in Him, and we must be able to use this understanding, this knowledge that God has given unto us, the scriptures that God has given unto us, to minister to those who come to us, to minister to those who may not fully understand it. So, brethren, I want to let you know that God's desires for us as couples is very clear. He brought us together for His purposes. He brought us together that we would open up our homes and our lives to the many saints out there. He brought us together that we would be established in our faith and grow together and support those who might be incomplete in the word of the Lord. May God bless you so much.